Hello and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you one of my art journals that I've just completed. I actually started this one in 2018. I tend to have a few on the go at the same time, so they don't always finish at the same time. I sort of plan to have one in January and then sort of run it through to the end of the year, but sometimes they do overlap. So here's my ring-bound book. It's quite a nice size. I quite like to work big because it gives you a bit more room to manoeuvre. I always start with the same theme on the front of the book. I tend to do a bit of like a mood collage, so it helps you sort of break a brand new sketchbook and helps you sort of start without worrying too much about ruining the book. So once you start it, I find it's easier to get going with it. So basically I just cut out different words from a magazine and some images that I liked. So basically I just put some inspiring words on there just to help me get going. So I'm just going to go through it quite quickly. So a lot of my art journals are kind of like experimental, so sometimes I think in this instance I had some paint left over from another project, so I thought I'd just daub it on and then cut out some shapes. So it says, what is an art journal for? So it's just like a question, and I think I made it for a course, so I could just use that as like a front cover page for my online course. So just to get people going. So it's got a bit of glitter on there, and it's got a bit of cut. I think I've used some scrap paper and cut out some shapes. So it's just a very sort of messy but colourful sort of image. So moving on, this is a bit more experimental work with marker pens. There's always more room in your heart to grow. So it was just a phrase that I came across, and again I've just used I think it's acrylic paint and marker pens just to doodle really. So just to sort of de-stress and doodle. Same with these. This is like tissue paper I've used here, and I think I bought some new brush pens, so I think I was just trying them out on here. And here again I've got a few cutouts. I often use pages that perhaps I didn't like very much, so I might have done something experimental on it, but I won't throw it away because I can always cut it up and use it for something else. So that's a good thing to do. If you really make a mess of one of your pages and you really don't like it and there's nothing on the other side worth saving, you can either cover it with something or rip it out and then use it and cut it up and use it for something else. This one was based on circles again. This is using a painted piece of paper that I think I just finished off a palette of paint that I was using and just scraped it on some paper, so it's got some nice sort of markings here. It's a bit of experimental work with some stamps. This is like a tree of life with like tissue paper and black paint. This is like a 3D hand design. It's really easy to do. Literally you just draw around your hand, go around it with pencil, and then when you put the mark lines in, you kind of go over the contours of the hand. So it's quite a nice one to try. Some more experimenting with some cut out paper. This is a bit of like no-tan inspired work, so it's paper cutting again. I do quite like cutting and pasting and sticking together and stuff. Same with this one, it's a bit like that sort of illusion, which is like, is it a vase or is it two people? This is more experimental with a bit of no-tan, so you can see some face images there that I sort of reused, and I was just playing around with like cut out shapes here. So sometimes I have a plan of what I'm going to do, other times it just evolves. So these ones, I had a picture of Salvador Dali here. So this was just an experimental page. I wasn't actually that happy with it when I first did it, and I did actually go back a few times and just draw over it and paint over it. So you can see there's some coppery sort of colours here, and there's some writing. So some art you produce, it might not be your best work or what you really love or anything, but there are aspects of it I quite like. So you could, if you frame off certain areas, even like just with, capture different areas, you could photograph that and use that on another piece of work. So all is not lost. Or you could scan it and then recut it up and reassemble it, deconstruct it and reassemble it. So I think this one is spirals. I often revert back to spirals. I quite like spirals as an image, just as something mindful. This is obviously just black ink that I just blurred and sort of dripped. This is paint, and I think they're Posca markers just there. So it's just experimenting with seeing what happens and different colour combinations. So I mean, I wouldn't normally put grey and yellow together, for example, but I thought I'd just try it, because you never know. Sometimes things work, sometimes they don't. Here's some spray I was trying out, and a few sort of artist quotes just to make it a bit more interesting. On this one I think I've used Mod Podge or varnish. So again, I was just using a scraper just to create some different marks. This is a bit more collage again. Using a few sort of words that I found out. Some of the things in my book you might recognise from demonstrations I've done. Here again, I was looking at like a distressed kind of old look, so I was experimenting with some grey paint and some chalk paint and rubbings, and so to make a little worn sort of look, and put a couple of handprints on there. And this is like what I call a handala, so it's basically a mandala but made of overlapping handprints, literally just coloured in with Sharpie markers. It's quite effective. Some more experiments with ink, and obviously using leaves as a template, so just spraying over them and then removing the leaves. Sometimes I'll put notes of what it is down the bottom, just to remind myself. So these were the prints from the leftover prints from here, so I took the leaves off and then just printed them on I think it's a gesso primed background, using cutout templates this time. Bit of doodling with just marker pens and a bit of paint. So sort of using precision against more sort of loose painting. Here's some nice, I quite like this type of style of art journaling. So here I've used some wrapping paper, a cutout from I think a Victorian prints that I had, some flowers from a gardening magazine, a few prints over the top, and a little bit of dry brushing just to make it a bit aged. Same with this side, it's got musical notes, a bit of music paper that I've torn up, a few words and images, a few cut out images, stamping, a bit of crayon I think I must have used there, a few little stick-on gems. So it's just playing, really, playing with the imagery and the composition. So I've got like a line down here where the birds are, and I've got like a window here and here, so it sort of brings it together with the central diagonal line. Here's a bit more experimental painting and brushing. I think this one like experimenting with like little doors and bits that flap open. This was an inked background and just some, I think I just used a type of fine liner pen for this, just to doodle over the top. It's like a twig man type thing. it's an idea that I've actually done a sculpture of. So I think I was just sketching out here just to see what it would look like. On here I've used some texture paste. I often make my own texture paste, so some of these stars here are quite raised. So basically I use PVA, plaster or filler, and you can colour it with paint as well. So it's quite a loose mix, but as it dries it will stay on, and the PVA gives it a bit of stability, because obviously if you just put plaster or filler straight on there, if you turn the page it would probably all crack and fall off. So I often like messing around with trying different things and just drawing over it, painting over it. So it's like anything, by doing something you're learning. So you don't really stop learning as an artist. You're constantly exploring different ways to do things, and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But if you don't try these things and you don't experiment, you'll find yourself quite constrained. And to boost your creativity, I think it's good to stretch yourself. Even if you're way out of your comfort zone, it's good to just try something. Here's a bit more experimenting with powder, I think that was. Here's some, this was just before lockdown actually, this. I produced some flyers for my workshops, but as that was just before lockdown, I haven't actually released any of them yet, but hopefully at some point I'll be able to get back to classes. There's another tree of life. This time I've put some like sticky gems on there. This is a string art sort of technique that I quite like doing. So it's basically string, making an outline of something, and then overlaying it with PVA and tissue paper, so it kind of get this like raised effect. Then I've highlighted it with some gold paint there. So a bit more experimenting there. I think these were a couple of backgrounds. I think I had some black paint left over and I just splurged it on the paint, on the paper. Well, I didn't really like it. I think I left it for quite a while before I actually went back and thought, oh yeah, I know what I can stick on there now. So sometimes you might get stuck with an image or stuck with a background that you're not particularly keen on. But rather than rip it out, just give it a while, because sometimes it'll grow on you, or sometimes you'll suddenly think, oh, I know, I can put some words over it, or I think these were stickers off of something that I thought, oh yeah, that'll do. I'll just make a little funky flower arrangement. It says allow your imagination to flourish. So a little bit of inspiration. It's a bit of cartoon drawing. I think my son was into cartooning, so I had a little session in my book and he had a little session in his book, so we did some cartooning together. And I think this was doodling on here, the purple sort of leaves. I didn't really know what to put, so in the end I just ended up writing. I have no idea what to do on this page, blah blah blah. So, journaling can have writing in it. I quite like this image here. This is a collaged image. This is kind of like, at the time I was having a bit of ructions with a friend who, it was quite a one-sided relationship. She was taking a lot from me and I wasn't really getting very much back from her. But she was going through a difficult time and sort of blaming and being quite aggressive. So this was kind of like a response to that, sort of saying, I'm on your side, friend. But I was being faced with a tiger, so every time I was trying to help, she was fighting back at me. So sometimes you can use things, ideas or emotions that inspire your work. This is another type of handala with pen and ink. A bit more random writing. So sometimes I do automatic writing, so you just start writing something and just offload whatever comes into your head and just pour it onto your page. And even if it is personal or difficult, you can always paint over it at another stage. You don't have to show anybody. This was experimenting with some handmade print blocks. Again, experimenting with some, I think this is when we had the lockdown, the summer lockdown, so it's like sort of time, you know, you're waiting for the summer fun to start, but you're sort of holding back because you weren't really allowed out or anything. It's another type of collage for just a few words and images that I like the look of at the time. I think this is another collage I did for one of the demonstrations in one of my classes. So this is overlaying images, so it's quite a nice colour scheme there. I've got like pinks and greens and browns and a bit of old paper, catalogue paper, a few images. So sometimes the image just looks pretty for the sake of it, sometimes it might mean something, so it's kind of like follow your heart. There's a little lady there with some paintbrushes in her, it could be paintbrushes, it could be flowers, in a bike, so she's sort of travelling. So just a few sort of images there. Some more experimental notan, some more string work, and some button art. It's got a bit dirty from the other page, but I don't worry too much about that. Actually, both of these I think I did from Mixed Media Mondays, so if you look for those on YouTube you might find how I did these and maybe have a go at yourself. This was just like, I think I was just fed up and bored, so I just wrote loads of things about lockdown and all the problems that you come across with all the rules and regulations and how it affects you. So you can sort of outpour your own emotions into your journal and make it as personal or impersonal as you want, really. That's a bit more just experimenting with patterns. Sometimes the pages follow on a theme, but other times it's just random what's in there. It's more of like a pattern mandala again, so using cut-out paper. It's a bit of a Kandinsky inspired session. I think I've done, yeah, I did do these as a demonstration for another workshop that I was doing. It's a bit more abstract Kandinsky-esque type work. These are all actually Mixed Media Mondays, so one of these was like a free drawn mandala using this using that theme and then just free drawing over the top with some marker pens. This was an 8-point mandala which is used using a grid, so it's very sort of, there's no measuring involved, it was literally just a free drawn type of pattern. Kind of ended up looking like a lotus. I didn't intend it to, but once I started colouring it I thought, yeah, it's like a little pink and green lotus flower, so it worked out quite nice. Then at the end is some random bits that I've cut out and stuck in. Sometimes I might do something on a piece of paper and then rather than just having it lying around in a drawer or getting messy or just end up throwing it away, I'll cut it up and stick it in my book. So here's like the end of my sketchbook. So this was just a doodle I did. And this was actually, sometimes I get visual migraines, and at one point I thought I'm going to try and draw the pattern that I see in my visual migraines. So it was kind of like these sort of flashing zigzaggy patterns. So I thought I think at the time I wanted to put on a big piece of paper, and I think I'd drawn the back of an envelope. Then I thought, oh no, I'm going to stick that in my art journal as well, so I can just cut it out and stick it in, and wrote a few words there just to remind me. And going back here, obviously I've got a bit of bleed through there from that page. Sometimes that works in your favour, other times you could just paint over it, hide it, or collage over it. This time I decided just to leave it, and I've scribbled over the end as it's the end of the book. Or is it just beginning? So obviously I'm going to start another book, or I might actually finish, I've got 2 or 3 other books that are almost complete, so I'll probably try and finish those before I start a new one in for 2021. So anyway, that's just my book, and I hope you enjoy it, and I hope it inspires you to perhaps have a go at art journaling yourself. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.